Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another week's installment of Misfits Guide to Living. How does it get any better than this to be here with you guys? So we're just going to wait a minute for people to jump on. You should see my behind the scenes tech setup here. It's just amazing. You'd be very proud of me. You could say hello to my little dragon. Let's see to contribute to you guys and my little co-pilot for these Misfits Guides to Livings. Okay. Hello. So this week's topic, we have control or manipulation. Which one do you use? And what's the difference? Well, the difference is depending on what the result is that you desire to create with it. So a lot of people will manipulate in order to get control, and a lot of people will use control in order to manipulate. And these are two very different energies that I want. My dragon's name is Starlight. It took me 2 weeks to come up with that name. I basically just asked this guy, I was like, hey, what do you want your name to be? And he was just like, I'm not telling. I'm not telling you. And then it just like popped into my head. He was like, Starlight, that's what I want to be called. So anyway, side note. I have so many side notes today. So me staying on track throughout this will be a miracle. So let's see how I go. Okay, so they are two very different energies, control and manipulation. But basically what the way that you really get to start using manipulation as a tool to create possibilities is look at the results that you desire to create. Now, look, if we look at with control, for example, most people use control as a way to get control over. This doesn't mean that control is a bad thing, but if you look at it and go, okay, what result am I desiring to create here with this? Now, that takes a lot of honesty with yourself. And this is something I'm still learning every day, is to be honest with me. And that, so when something comes up, like let's say with business or with relationship, or, even with stuff with your body or stuff with your kids, stuff with your family, where you are trying to create a result, you're doing control in order to create it. With that, just from that awareness, if you're willing to have that, if you are using control to create a result, nothing can come in that doesn't match that result. Okay, it's the same as decision, judgment, conclusion, and any of those things. So let's start with one of my favorite processes that I have used continuously for the last 15 years. What energy, space, consciousness, and choice can I be to be out of control, out of definition, out of limitation, out of form, structure, significance, out of linearities, and out of concentricities with total ease for all eternity? Everything that doesn't allow it, will you destroy and uncreate it? Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, povads, creation, species, and beyonds. Okay, so there's that clearing statement again for those of you who might be new to this access stuff and you're like, what? Theclearingstatement.com. Also with that process, great one to put on a loop. And I have a loop on SoundCloud. I have a couple of things actually that are free resources on SoundCloud. One is a process loop for out of control. The other, I went to do an updated process loop on that with the new clearing statement that came out, because the clearing statements had, I think, 3 changes in the last 12 months or so. So I went to do a new process loop, and I ended up doing just a 30-minute conversation on different ways that you can get yourself, give yourself more awareness from this, give yourself some more freedom with this. Okay, so manipulation in what we're looking at here is true manipulation can actually be used as a tool to create something greater. okay, to create a greater possibility in the world and in your life. And I had, so many years ago, I was in a relationship. Here's an example of this. I was in a relationship with Simone Milicis, who a lot of you will know. And one of the tools that we would use a lot with each other was manipulation. And both of us knew that the other one was manipulating them. And it didn't matter, because we both knew that it was to create something greater for both of us and everyone. It wasn't about creating control. So it was this time she came home. She came home from shopping, and basically she'd been shopping, and she had bags full of Tupperware, like stuff that you keep things in. And she came home and she was just like so excited that she bought all of this stuff. And I was doing something, I didn't pay any attention. I was just like, okay, she went to show me, and I was just like, okay, great, Tupperware. And she stormed off, and she was upset, and she went for a walk, and she called Gary Douglas, and she was, telling him about it. And he said, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go home and you need to make it all about him. And she was like, what the fuck? I don't want to go home and make it all about him. He should be making it all about me, and control. Anyone notice themselves in any of that? Where it's that thing of, no, this person should be doing this, control. And so she went, okay. So she gave it a try, and she came home and she made it all about me. Within 3 minutes, I was making it all about her. And when I talked to her afterwards about it, we're having a conversation about it. And I said it was interesting, because as soon as the energy changed like that, I just desired to be more present. I desired to be more of a contribution, and I desired to be more of me. And this is another thing with manipulation, is when you're truly doing it to create a greater possibility, you're inviting somebody to be more of what's true for them, not less than, which is what we do with control. And so in this conversation that I was having with her after it, I was like, she told me she had a conversation with Gary, and I was like, what did he say? And she said, he said that this man has never in his life had anything made all about him. Do it and see what it creates. And so I bring that part up, because if you look at your interactions in your life, is most of the time you have no idea what's going on for somebody. And so if you're willing to be an energy that creates a different space, what could you invite people to be if you didn't have to be in control all the time? So everything that brings up, times the Godzilla, where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all 100, shorts, boys, pobads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Okay, so manipulation, great tool in relationship. Okay, and so one example there. One of the other things I want to say about this is how much of what you choose as less than you, how much of those energies that you go to, well, I can't create this, I can't do this, I'm never going to be able to change this, how much are they manipulations to get other people to choose them and create them for you? Everything that is, and everything that doesn't allow you to perceive, know, be, and receive that, will you destroy and create it? Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all 100, shorts, boys, pobads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Okay, I want to give you guys another example on this, because this was such a change for me. I was in Costa Rica many years ago, and I was doing pathetic. You should have seen me years ago. I mean, I'm still good at it when I choose it, but it's nowhere near as often as I used to choose it, and I'm good. And Oh, memories, the good old days. So I was in Costa Rica, and I was doing drama, I was doing trauma, I was doing all of it. I was doing upset, intrigue, everything. And, and I had Gary Douglas there again. Oh my goodness, that man. I got a lot to thank him for, as I'm sure a lot of you on here do also. Thank you, Gary Douglas. He said to me, he said, I have a question for you. He said, how much of what you're doing right now, how much of this pathetic, how much of this upset, how much of this less than is to get other people to create this for you? And as soon as he said it, I laughed. It stopped. It changed the energy of what I was choosing and what I was creating. And I laughed and I went, holy shit. And so, anyone else notice yourself in that? But here's the part: when you're willing to have the awareness is when you can actually begin to change these things. Okay. The only thing that you cannot change is what you keep hidden or secret from you. That's so, and see, because a lot of things that don't seem to change in your life, these are all the things that you have, all of these points of view that you won't expose to you. So in that, when he said that, and I was like, holy shit. And I realized that I did that so much in my life at that point. I would always make myself less than as this go-to, as this manipulation, basically, in order to get other people to create my life for me. So everything that brings up, and all of just everything that brings up, will you destroy and uncreate it all? Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, povads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Next part with this is what I realized for me was I went, wow, who does that belong to? And I realized that I'd grown up around a lot of people who would do that. They would go to that energy in order to get other people to create for them. Unfortunately, that doesn't give you a whole lot of choice. So everything that you have aligned and agreed with or resisted and reacted to that allows that to exist for you, will you destroy and uncreate it all? Times a godzillion, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, povads, creations, bases, and beyonds. I want to give you guys heads up too, while it's popping into my head. I started this last week. We did the live on Out of the Box. I think it was on something along those lines. And so I've got this 3-part telecall coming up in a week or so. And I started this pre-party group in WhatsApp. So a couple of days ago, we did an energy pool in that group. And right after this live, I'm going to do an SOP session, a quickie online that you are all going to get invited to if you're in that chat. So there you go. So manipulation or control. Okay. So what would it be like if you could have the honesty with yourself to see where you are using control to create less than, rather than be the question that would allow you to manipulate into creating a greater possibility? Now, just start with an awareness of, let's use relationship as an example, because this is a good one, is how much control do you do in relationship to keep the relationship exactly the way that you need it to be, rather than be the manipulation that would allow the relationship to grow every day into something that it actually could be. Everything that brings up times a godzillion, and everywhere you just like, oh my goodness, being that much out of control, we destroy and uncreate it all. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, povads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Again, that process. What energy, space, consciousness, and choice can I be to be out of control, out of definition, out of limitation, out of form, structure, significance, out of linearities, and out of concentricities, with total ease for all eternity? Everything that doesn't allow it times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, pobads, creations, bases, and beyonds. How much have we been taught to control everything? How much, in order to ask the question, do you already go into control to control the outcome, or to control what can show up based on that question? How much do you go to control with your body? How much do you go to control with your kids, with your family, with the people in your life, with you, with what you can and cannot choose? What if there was a different possibility? So everything that brings up, where you destroyed and created all, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, pobads, creations, bases, and beyonds. Okay, so within relationship is, again, notice where you are choosing it. Okay, first thing is just go, okay, here's where I'm doing a lot of control. What would it take, or what would it be like for me to be out of control with this? What question could I be here? What's a different choice? What can I be and do to change this? And what would I choose right now if I was willing to manipulate for a greater possibility? The next thing with this is talking about manipulation and control. A lot of people have a lot of stuff on the word manipulation. Okay, you'll hear that word and you'll be like, I'm not going to get manipulated. Nobody manipulates me, or everybody manipulates me, or, it's got such an interesting energy to it. And a lot of people have a lot of judgment of it. Anywhere that you have a judgment of anything, let's say manipulation, if you have a judgment of manipulation and you're not willing to manipulate, you will get manipulated. Okay, so everything that is, and all the judgments that you have of that, and everywhere you've had it be something that's been used against you, where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all 100, shorts, boys, pobads, creations, bases, and beyonds. You are very welcome. So we have, for a bit of a deeper dive into this, I'm also doing an idiot's guide to manipulation. This is going to be a 3-part call coming up in, I think, a couple of weeks. And you're all welcome to jump on that also. What else? So interesting. I come on here with you guys for these lives sometimes, and my head just goes blank with my 8,000 things that I was going to talk about. There was one other thing with, this can work for in business or people that you're working with. It could work with family. It could work with anyone as well, as a question or an awareness with this difference between manipulation and control. Is, what is this person capable of that they don't even know that they're capable of? And what can I be and do to empower them to choose that? So if you are working with somebody, or you're in a relationship with somebody, or with your kids, I think kids is a great example, because I'm a dad. My son is 20 now, and there was so many times when he was growing up where I would see what he could choose, and then I would try and do control in order to make him choose it. But have any of you noticed that when you do that, all you get is rejection? So this, as a different way from this question of empowerment, is looking at what somebody's capable of choosing, not expecting them to choose it, but what could you be or do to empower them to know that it's a possibility? What question could you be with this? And so with your kids, great tool is teaching them to choose, allowing them to choose. But then when they choose something and it doesn't work out so great, rather than making them wrong, or showing them what could have been or what should have been, is asking them a question. Okay, so what did that choice create? How did that work for you? Does that work for you? And then they go, oh, No, it actually didn't. And I had so many. I mean, one example of this, I was my son Nash. He was, I think, 14 at the time, and he was going to boarding school in Australia. And he did not want to be there anymore, you know. And so he was like, no, I'm leaving. I don't want to be here. I want to come home. I want to go to this other school. And I was like, and from my point of view, I could see that if he stayed there, he would get a much better education. So I was doing everything that I could to control him into staying there. And all it got him to do was push harder against me. And one of the things I actually did, which I thought was manipulation at the time, but when I look at it, was actually control, because I had a result in mind, was I said, look, if you're willing to stay there and finish school, I'll give you a certain amount of money when you finish. And he just went, no, it was not what he desired to choose. And so again, I bring that up because notice where anything that you are trying to do to have control over another, all you can create is rejection and separation with that. So what would manipulation be? And is the manipulation in order to create a greater possibility, or are you trying to create a result? So there you go, beautiful people. I hope that contributes. Have the most phenomenal day. For those of you who don't know, also, I have a Telegram chat that we are, there's lots of content, different things that go in there. What could you acknowledge about you today? What could you acknowledge about you today? And what could you choose that would be congruent, or that would be congruent with that acknowledgement? So if that acknowledgement is, you know what, I can choose something different here. I can choose something with my life. I am, I'm not less than, I am, creative, whatever that is what can you choose today? That would be an acknowledgement of that. So beautiful people, thank you. Like I said, we're doing an SOP in 7 minutes. So there you go. Somebody maybe can put the link for the chat. Basically, if you're in my Telegram, the link's in there. If you're in the chat already, the Zoom line's going to be in there. So we would love to have you. For those of you listening after, you can still join that Telegram, and that WhatsApp group. We'll figure out a way for you to get there. Thank you. Oh my goodness, you guys are amazing. Okay, beautiful people. Thank you for being here. What else is possible we have never considered? I will see you guys next week.